Well, thanks everyone for joining me. We're going to get going in just a few minutes. I'm just going to give a little bit of time before we really get going, just for people to pick up the fact that we've gone live. Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining. It's great to see you. Hope you're doing well over in Eastbourne. Excuse me, a little cough. I hope you're doing well. Okay, I'm just going to hang on just for a little bit longer, and then I'll do an official proper start in a minute. I just want to give time for people to join in, to realise that I'm going live and click on it and start watching. You never know what people are doing. Fiddling around with my phone here. Okay, yeah, this must be really interesting for you, and I thank you for sticking with me. Okay. All right, thank you for joining me tonight. It's a pleasure to be back with you. This is the third of our worship leader conversations, and the great thing about doing this is that I'm able to connect with people that I've never met before, and that's what's going to happen tonight, because my guest tonight is Matt Gatt, who is from St Peter's, Howell Hill up in Surrey, and I've never met him before. I reached out on Facebook to ask for people to be interviewed in these things a little while ago, and Matt was one of the people that responded. So I'm going to be chatting to Matt in a little while's time, finding all about him. It's great to build that kind of connection. In the meantime, I want to share some exciting news that we've got coming up. Some of you may already know that we have done in the past here in Portsmouth 631 worship days. Now, I mentioned this last week. Where before the lockdown, we had a couple of times where we brought worship teams and worship leaders together from all around the city and from across the whole South Coast area. We had people coming from Poole. I know Steph's just joined us. Steph is good. I'm going to be speaking to Steph next week on the worship leader conversations, but she came with her church to the 631 worship days. We had people come in from Maidstone. We had people coming down from London and Hastings. Yeah, people came from all over to gather for a Saturday afternoon where we just sat down, and we had 5 different local worship pastors sharing their heart for the worship team. And then in the evening, we gathered to worship God. And the great thing about it was that those worship nights, that it wasn't just that the worship was great. The worship was great, and people were passionate and free in their worship. But it was also the fact that it represented such incredible unity across the city and across the area, because the worship was being led by people from all different kinds of churches, all coming together as one team to lead. And that was such a fantastic representation of unity within the church. So exciting to be a part of. Now, at the moment, because it's lockdown, we can't do that. So we're going to do something very different. We're going to run virtual 631 worship days, which means we're going to be going online. Now, we won't be able to do the night of worship, obviously, but what we will be able to do is put on some evenings of training and teaching using Zoom, where people can join in the Zoom meeting, and we'll have 2 or 3 different leaders sharing just for 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, not too long, not as long as what we did when we were gathering all together, just sharing for 10 minutes, sharing their hearts, sharing some thoughts. And then we're going to get people out into breakout rooms. So you'll be in small groups, you'll be with people that you've never met before, and still on Zoom, chatting over what was shared, answering some questions, taking the message and the thoughts deeper, and looking at ways in which those thoughts can be worked out and walked out. So it'd be very similar to our 631 training times. The great thing is that you don't have to come to a location to be a part of it. You can watch and be involved in it through Zoom wherever you are in the country, wherever you are in the world. And that's the exciting thing. So I'm looking forward to launching that. We're hoping that we're going to get the first 631 virtual worship training day launched hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. They'll be on Sunday afternoon, evening sort of time. They'll last for about an hour and a half. They're limited, because of Zoom, they'll be limited to about 100 people. And that, we can't. That's what we have to work within. So, if you're interested in joining and being part of 631 Worship Training Day, virtual Worship Training Day, then go to 631worship.com and sign up so that we can email you when we get the first date set in stone. 631worship.com. Just add your name and email address in there, and we will let you know when the first one is and when future dates are announced and go live. And you can come and join us. It'll be free. It's completely free. There's no cost. You just come in, you get involved. You get involved for as much as you want, for all of it or for just part of it. But we would love to have you there, especially if you are part of a worship team or you're a worship leader. There are such great afternoons. For everyone gets to be involved. Everyone gets to invest and share who they are and what they're thinking about what's been said. So check that out, 631worship.com. Sign up and we'll let you know when the next one's going to be. All right, so moving on. I want to bring in my guest tonight, and we're going to spend the rest of the time just chatting and hearing their story and finding out their journey as a worship team leader. The whole point of these conversations is so that we can find out from other leaders, other worship team leaders, what their journey has been like, the stuff that they've learned, the challenges that they've faced, the triumphs and successes that they had, what led to those things, what enabled them to grow their team and for them as a leader to grow. So that's the whole point of this. So, right, I am going to bring in Matt, and we will have a chat and find out all about it. Go. This is the exciting part. This is where we find out whether it really works or not. Here we go. Matt.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me.
It's all right. It's my pleasure.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. Let me just tweak my phone. There we go.
Thank you for letting me be here. Yeah, I was just going to do the same, actually. I'm trying to use a tiny little tripod to try and get all of my massive head in there.
I know what you mean. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It is a pleasure to actually meet you. So we've never met.
No,
and
never.
We connected through the UK Worship Leaders Facebook group. When I put out
to anybody.
Hello. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anybody.
If you're watching, you need to be involved in that group because there's lots of good stuff that happens there.
Yeah.
Let me say a quick shout out to Kelvin. Thank you for joining us, Kelvin. Do you know Kelvin, Matt?
I do. I connected with him when I was in my previous role to where I am now. So cool. Kelvin is a great worship leader and now a budding songwriter. So
fantastic.
He's a great guy.
He looked like he knew you when it looked like as if he knew what you before you said hello. Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so I get my words out right. All right, so here we go. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, where you are, how long you've been there, what your team's like, all that kind of stuff.
Great, yeah, sure. So, as already been said, my name's Matt. I am living currently in the wonderful leafy Surrey, and I'm serving at St Paul's Howell Hill, and I'm doing the role as a youth and worship pastor, which is really exciting. I live here with my wife Lauren and our dog, and
lovely.
That's about as exciting as family life gets at the moment.
Excellent. How long have you been married?
So been married 2 years.
Cool.
It'll be 3 this year, but we got to get to September. So
fantastic. And so, how long have you been at St Paul's?
So I have been here just over 6 months now. So
okay.
I actually had a baptism of fire starting in this role here. My first week on the job was taking a group of young people that I'd never met before to Soul Survivor. So
fantastic.
Baptism of fire evening.
Yeah, totally. Fantastic. And good. Where were you before St Paul's?
I was in the Midlands in a church, St Matt's.
Yeah.
So that was good.
And so overall, how long have you been involved in actually leading a worship team?
That's a very good question. In a paid capacity, I've been full-time in worship ministry for about 5 years now. But in terms of leading teams, I think the first worship team I was sort of actively involved in leading, I was about 16. So I'd say about 10 years-ish. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic.
been long time.
Yeah. And what is St Paul's like as a church? I'm assuming it's Church of England, but
Yep.
in what way is that expressed?
So it is Church of England, and it goes from a bunch of different styles. To be perfectly honest, we're a multi-age church with a varied identity, actually, of lots of different stylistic preferences,
Yeah.
all expressed in the church, which is really exciting. Sorry, I've been slightly
Yeah.
off put because one of my youth has shown up and now waved. Hi,
Oh, okay.
Florence.
Is that Florence? Hello, Florence.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. It's always
Um,
funny when I do these that people who know the people that I'm speaking to come on and say hello and stuff. It's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Always exciting. Uh, yeah. So it's a great church, and
Yeah.
we have really enjoyed coming and getting stuck in Surrey. It's a lovely
Yeah.
place.
That's fantastic. And so, would you say, as with the worship expression that you have at St Paul's, do you fit it? Do you like use the Book of Common Prayer as well as some very contemporary style of worship? Have you got that kind of very broad spectrum?
So it's not quite Book of Common Prayer, but we do
Yeah.
have a more sort of, I say traditional Anglican but kind of not.
Yeah.
I mean, the morning service is very much, we have liturgy, we go through, confession, absolution, then sermon, worship, all that kind of stuff. We've still got quite a contemporary flavour to it. And that's where we also do all of our all-age worship. So that all happens in the morning service. And then we also then have the 6 o'clock service where all of our young people show up to, and and that's much more contemporary in flavour.
Yes.
And that's where that's where doing things like worshipping in the round and all that kind of extended times of worship is all happening at the evening service.
Fantastic. So your worship team, does it have a vision statement or a mission statement or anything like that? And what is it?
So we don't necessarily have a specific one for the worship team. So overall, the church's vision statement is connect, transform, and serve. So the idea of connecting to one another, to Jesus, and to our community, transforming into the image of Christ, ultimately, because we want to live lives like Jesus, and then sacrificially serving our neighbour. So I think that's very much intertwined in everything that we do. And we are exploring missional communities. So some people may know what missional communities are, but looking at the up, in, and out model of how we do things.
Could that be described as a fresh expression?
In many ways, it could be. I think at the moment it's one of those things that we're sort of starting on the journey, and I've been able to come in at the point that I've come in at. But there's other people that are doing much more sophisticated thinking about it than I have been, and they've had some real big dreams and some things that God's really laid in their heart, which is really exciting. So I just get to come along and partnering with that. So that's great.
there's a big move of fresh expression and pioneering going on in the Anglican Church, and it's very exciting to see. I work part-time for the Diocese of Portsmouth here, and so I get to see some of the things that go on. I was involved with a conference last year that was all about pioneering ministry, and it's very exciting to see that kind of enthusiasm and passion to reach out into the community from the Anglican Church. It's really good.
Definitely.
Really good to see. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, so tell me then, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a team leader, whether here at St Paul's or at previous churches? What the biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you get through them? How did you overcome them?
I think everyone in worship ministry always has some very specific challenges and things that we all have to deal with. I think one of the things that I particularly have had to wrestle with is from leading teams at a younger age than some, leading teams with people and members of the team that are quite considerably older than you, and having to work out how do you do leadership well in that
Yeah.
in that situation is really interesting, but a wonderful challenge. And I think I love that quote. I don't know who said it first, but it's the whole idea as a worship pastor and as a worship leader, your job is not to show up and be the best at everything, but to bring the best out in everyone that you lead.
That's great. Yeah.
So I love that. And I think that's very much where that's where I want to be leading from, is the place of, trying to encourage the best in my team and the teams that I get to be a part of. And we have some wonderfully talented people at St. Paul's, far more musically talented than I. And it's honestly a joy and privilege to get to work with them, because I always get to learn as well as lead.
Yes, absolutely.
That's always
fantastic. Yeah. Is there anything, when you look back, whether here at St. Paul's or previously, is there anything that, looking back in hindsight, you wish you hadn't done?
I think there's lots of things. I think that is the nature of leadership and growing as a leader. I think you often have those moments. I mean, I've had my fair few times of embarrassing.
Can you share one?
Stories? Yes, fine. So I think my biggest worship horror moment. I was doing a. This one's really bad, and I'm hoping that none of my youth then rewatch this. But I was doing.
Do you want me to edit out when I put it in YouTube?
Well, we'll leave it. When I was 18, I was invited to lead worship at a youth event in the town close to where I grew up, and I got to go and lead worship and do that with my band. Obviously, we were 18, we thought we knew everything, we were going to change the world, it was going to be brilliant. And we were doing the classic kind of final party set of a youth conference, the ones I'm talking about. And we were singing a song called Not Ashamed, and this was back in the day when it was.
Is that the Delirious?
No, the Ben Cancelon one that was.
Oh, okay, yes,
the one, that one. And it was back in the day when denim shirts were really fashionable for worship leaders, but they only ever came with poppers on the front.
Okay.
And you can probably see where this is going.
I feel like I can see where this is going.
So, drawing towards the end of this song, we are having a party, lots of young people dancing and jumping, and it's great fun. And so I decided I'm going to take my guitar off and I'm going to jump and get involved. As I do, the strap button on the back of my guitar catches in my shirt, and I take my guitar off and rip my shirt open. So I think that's probably my biggest worship horror.
Oh dear! Wow.
Subsequently, after just singing "I'm Not Ashamed," which
well, there you go. You kind of emulating David to a degree there, I think.
Yeah,
we can spin it that way.
Yeah, we'll take it. I'll take that one.
Fantastic. So, but in terms of like actually getting back, in terms of actually leading a team or interacting with your team members, is there anything that you've done that you think, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that a different way?
I actually think that for me, my biggest, I wish I had done something differently, is all to do with building team and how you grow team. And there's been a number of occasions when I've been involved in church where I've wanted to see the team grow and flourish and bring themselves as raw as possible. And I think for me, I have always tried to look for heart over practical skill. And actually sometimes I think my biggest learning point has actually been to spend enough time to find out the voice of the people around me. Where I'm not leading members of team into a place where they can be in a position where they're exposed when they're being spiritually vulnerable. as we know, leading worship is an exceptionally vulnerable thing, and so people are really sharing their heart. It's a heart's cry, and so I think my biggest learning point, and I wish, looking back, I wish I'd done stuff differently, is definitely been not releasing people because they are practically competent when they're not emotionally and spiritually in the place where they can respond to things. I think that's been that's my biggest wish. Done something differently.
No, that's really good. And for what has been some of the best things that you've done then as a team leader? Or is that question a bit too vague? I mean,
it's a bit vague, but
it is a bit. Yeah.
I think the blessing of being able to lead teams is the ability to do family and the ability to create community. And in my current role, actually, I'm at the start of that journey with this team because I've only been around for just over 6 months, and actually we've been doing that bedding in, who is Matt, how does he lead, who is the team, what is their identity, and how do we do that together. But actually, I think that's one of my most exciting phases, I think, in leading a team, is the getting to know each other and to start building that relationship. And actually, it's the fruit that comes out of those relationships that you practically see on a Sunday when you're leading together.
And how is the current situation with lockdown and that? What have you done to continue that when you can't actually physically meet together?
Yeah, it's exceptionally difficult. When you're so used to gathering as a community physically, this whole realm of not being able to gather has been horrendous. And for an extrovert like me, I'm struggling with a lockdown. I'm just missing real people. I'll take any opportunity to talk to anyone at the moment. Anyone who's just a real person, whether they're 2 meters away from me, it's the ideal. But I think so. We've been doing a number of things. I think the biggest one that I've really enjoyed is last night we had a worship team quiz night, which some of the team came to, which was brilliant fun, and just that time to come and not have an agenda of, well, these are the things we want to introduce, these are the practical things we need to deal with. Just the idea of coming together and just being able to hang out and have some fun. I think for me that's the thing that I've really enjoyed.
And do you sorry, carry on.
Sorry, and as with everybody at the moment, everyone's wrestling with how do you keep team engaged, and how can you keep the church engaged with what's going on in lockdown. I think that's something that everyone's wrestling with, and everybody's got some different ideas, and everyone's got different strategies, and I think it comes down to team as to how best to make that happen. I think
I'd do it. And do you, coming into this, so you've been involved with it for 6 months, how are you handling knowing that you can look at it and say, well, that needs to change, we need to fix that needs to do it, at the same time as like you're talking about, that building that relationship and establishing the trust within your team? How are you as a leader balancing that and finding that?
I think it's a real tension that I have to keep myself aware of. I'm one of these people that I like to take things off as quick as possible and go, these are the things we need to do, and these are the blocks that are in the way, these are the things to build on, these are the things to reevaluate, and I think it's all, for me, it's been a big thing of going, okay, let's learn the culture, let's do what we need to take us forward, whilst also still understanding, because I'm still learning names, I'm still getting to know faces, I'm still meeting people on Sundays that I've not spoken to before, but they know who I am, and I say, hi, how long have you been here? And they say, oh, we've been here 10 years. And you go, great, that's great. Awkward. And so I think there's that real thing of learning the community you're part of. And and so it's a tension. It's always a tension. And I think the biggest I think the changes that on paper are the easiest things to change are often the most difficult.
Yeah.
Often people go, oh, well, these practical things, doing this with the sound stuff, doing this with what guitar we use, all those kind of things, the things that should be nice, like tick off, we've got that sorted, we've bought that bit of kit, those things often are the most difficult to do.
Yeah.
And I think everything has to come down to the place of relationship and working that out. And it's brilliant that I get to work as part of a large and really eclectic team, and it's been brilliant to come and be part of that. And actually, everybody involved has a real clear sense of what God is calling St. Paul's to, and what the next season looks like. And I think we're now in that phase of as a team going, what is it that we are going back to when we eventually get out of lockdown? Because it is going to be a different landscape. It's going to be a different landscape for the church. And so I think with all these things, it's all about working this stuff out. And if you are a worship leader working in a volunteer position, then actually bouncing stuff off staff in the church is really valuable. If you're working in staff, bouncing that off, line managers, clergy, leaders, whoever that is, having people to talk to and go, I think this is going to be a great idea, but also going, I'm not 100% sure on the culture.
Yeah.
What does this look like?
Yes. Would this look? Yeah.
And you never 100% get there. You never do. And so I think it's the balancing act and working with team that helps you grow your team. Yeah,
I would agree with you. Thank you. That's good. Finally, then, it's been really great. Thanks for sharing, Matt. It's been really good. No problem. Finally, what has been the best piece of advice or encouragement that you have received from someone else about leadership or that kind of thing?
I have a few. Do I have to just give one? Or can
I you can share a couple. That's all good.
I think one of the first pieces of advice I was given when I first went into a paid role, my first ever boss in the church said to me that the key thing that you should be doing as a leader in the church, but also in a paid capacity, is to take your normal daily devotion and do that, but then to spend at least an hour a day spending more time discerning what is God saying to the community you're part of, what is he saying to you in the teams that you lead, what is he saying in that, because actually we have a responsibility to the people that we're leading to be listening and discerning what God is saying, more so than if we were just coming to church.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
So I think that's the first bit of
that's good.
Solid advice. Another piece would be that if you are the most gifted or the most skilled or the most competent person in the circle that you're part of, then you need to change circle. That you need to get yourself into a position where you can be learning.
Yes.
Because as you grow, you'll see your teams grow and flourish more so.
That's really good.
And then finally, which is a great piece of advice I've been given and I'm still yet to work out how to do it well, is to actually take time to rest well and to operate from a place of rest. And that's something that I'm still very much working with and working on.
Are you finding yourself busier now in this lockdown period than you were even before? I know a lot of people have found that.
I think I would say so, yes. And I think it's because the way that we operate is completely different. We were talking as a staff team a couple of weeks ago about the fact that the word Zoom had never, come into our vocabulary before, and now we're talking about having a Zoomy day, or that we're zoomed out, or that we've been zooming all day, and that's so I think we're all in that sense of how do we do roles and I don't think we've landed on what becomes normal, because everything evolves week to week, and there's new advice, there's new things to do, there's new challenges to face. So actually there's not really a sense of rhythm. These are the task lists, but actually you've got to also deal with these things as well. And it's the growth and the how do we keep pushing in.
That's really good. I've had a question come up here from Hilda, who I spoke to last week, who is probably in a very similar situation to you. And she's the team leader of a worship team at a fairly contemporary Anglican church. She's not been there very long either, and she's also an extrovert. She's asked, what would you do if you bounce an idea and it's not taken on?
I think it's a really good question, and I think ultimately everything we do as leaders is to be serving twofold. We serve the leaders that we sit under, and we serve the community that we're a part of. So, you know, if you bounce an idea off a leader that you're serving under, and they say, "Hey, it's not the right time," or "No, I don't think that's going to work," then actually there's a sense you've got to submit to that. And it's often a really painful thing, and I've been there and I've wrestled with that. But I think there's such gold in when you're doing that, and when you're serving both the community and the leaders above you. I think that really develops you as a leader, and I think it develops your sense of calling to the community you're part of in many ways. Because when I've had that happen before, I've gone 6 to 12 months down the road, and then you can 100% see why that idea was never the right thing to do. And it's only with the experience and the knowledge and the wisdom of leaders that have been leading longer than you that you discover that, really.
Yeah, sure. No, that's really good. Really good. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for joining me. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you. And I hope we can continue to connect on Facebook and Instagram. It'd be really good. Thank you again for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And I'll see you soon.
Cool.
God bless.
Cheers, Matt. God bless. Bye.
Well, there we go. That was Matt. That was a really good conversation. There was some good stuff in there. I'm glad you got your answer there, Hilda. That whole idea of having a great idea and then submitting it and it getting squashed and dealing with that. I think that's it's such an essential part of good leadership that we as leaders submitted to other leaders need to learn and get right. And I know of times when I've got it wrong, but I do remember times as well when I've got it right. And I know that the fruit of that is so powerful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Thank you for those that stuck with this. I really appreciate it. This video is going to be going up on YouTube very soon, so you'll be able to catch up, and I'll be posting it on IGTV as well. Next week, I'll be joined by Steph Martin-Papp, who is the worship pastor of Life Church in Poole. Steph's a really good friend. I've known her for quite a few years. Just an incredible worship leader. And so I'm going to be chatting with her next week. Really looking forward to that. I would love for you to join me. That's going to be on Monday next week at 8 o'clock, back to the normal time slot. And I will see you again next week. Thank you.